Okay, we'll start with the invocation, which was President McLean, but I guess I'll do it tonight. So can we all please stand? Because of Thanksgiving tomorrow, I think we should all just bow our heads and thank whoever we pray to or whoever we want to thank for all the good things we have in life. And bow our heads to say thank you. And everyone, please have a nice Thanksgiving.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda, we will have courtesy of the floor. Now this is, you can speak on anything that is not on the agenda. Okay? First up, Mr. Hirschman.
Thank you, Chairman. We feel happy Thanksgiving also. My concern is to enact no tax increase.
Mr. Hirschman, is your mic on?
We feel happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for wishing me happy Thanksgiving. My concern is to enact no tax increase. A lot of people in Allentown cannot afford it. But, you know, Allentown has most of the senior citizens live in Allentown in small row homes, and they're on fixed income. It's tough for them to make ends meet. I've been asking City Council to look into some areas where we can raise additional revenue. One was Congress just passed a new law where Allentown is going to be successful in getting 10 areas under the opportunity zone, where we have 10 zones where we can, where a person that purchased that land and puts an enterprise on it, gets a tax break. And we haven't done anything. And we own most of those tracts of land. And we're letting it go. I don't know, and this will put the land back on the, not only on the tax rolls, but bring employees down. I mean, we're letting this thing, it's called the opportunities, we're letting it go. Why are we letting something like that go where we can bring additional revenue in? I sent the city council, but I guess it sent in the waste paper basket. And my next question, Mr. President, is the other night there was a motion to start another enterprise fund for $300,000. Will that increase my real estate taxes by another $300,000? Affordable housing, the enterprise fund, it's starting an enterprise fund. We're here.
Madam Chair, if I'm understanding it correctly, Lou, it's taking $300,000 out of the unencumbered balance and putting it into the enterprise fund. So
There's no $300,000. I'm sorry, Courtney.
no. What I was going to say is, so it's not going to add to the 1.5 mil tax increase, but it's 1.5. It's 1.5.
We cut it already, Mr.
It's not going to add anything additional to that. It is part of the 1.5. So in a very technical sense, it is part of the tax increase, but for myself, if we're gonna go with that tax increase, whether we go with the home fund or not, it should be kept in the unencumbered balance.
Courtney, I don't think there's 300 grand in the unencumbered balance. That's what I'm asking.
I'm saying it's for the budget, what's being budgeted as part of what's being collected next year. So I see what you're saying, Lou. I'm saying it's not under the documents we've been given.
That's correct.
It's not new money above and beyond what's in the proposed budget. So even though it was brought up for the first time the other night, it's being taken out of the unencumbered balance for next year.
Grand in there.
Well, and that's, making sure we have those numbers correct is very important. But I'm just saying, from what's budgeted next year, it's not as if we need another 300,000 on top of what was already budgeted.
We should look at that before you pass it. And my final point, if you give me 10, 15 seconds, the other day you sent to committee, you had a ordinance and committee or building committee about waivers for community development. And years ago, I raised that question with Pat Brown, but I raised it in the third class city code, and Pat Brown says it's not allowed in the third class city code. But the structure said it could be maybe allowed in the optional charter. And I know what you're concerned, because you brought it up, Courtney, about having some kind of controls on it. But before I think pass an ordinance, we have to find out if it's permissible or a department head, other than an elected official, can grant waivers.
And just if I may, Madam President, respond to that as well. I agree with you. I have concerns about it, as you said. I want to look into all of that. One of the things that might be a difference in that between when you spoke to Senator Brown and now is about, and Mr. Klobuchar, correct me if I'm gonna get this year right, was it 2016 or 2015 that the third class city code was updated by the legislature?
I believe it was about 2015, it might have been 2014, 2015.
Okay, so there might be a change in there, which we'll check, and could we maybe, Mr. Klobuchar, have you just get the solicitor's office to give us maybe a more detailed memo on that particular ordinance before we come up for vote in 2 weeks, so we know exactly where it would be authorized from.
Sure, and the one, just as a quick response with that, I do think the home rule charter gives us some latitude
Okay.
potentially with that. The memo that was from Pat Brown, I think, was talking about just the
Just
third
the
class city
code.
code without looking at the option or the home rule charter law. I think we likely, under the home rule charter, have some latitude to do that. What the extent of that would look like would be up for council to evaluate and decide, and then for the mayor. But we'll certainly look into that and get back, but I suspect that's where it's going. What the decision would be.
And I just quickly, I want to answer your first point as well about the opportunity zones. I agree with you 100% that we haven't done everything we can to take advantage of them. That's a conversation I've been having with several people. The mayor and I talked about this just a few days ago. But I will also say that the Allentown Economic Development Corporation is doing a lot of work on the Metalworks site and also some of the sites that they have downtown, like the former Hess's employee parking deck. So there is some work being done. The city needs to pick up the slack.
We're looking at the ADC, I think you should look at all the properties, when I was on city council and Julio was on city council, we sponsored legislation transferring city-owned property to them to sell, and they still didn't sell it. I think you should be looking at it, bring that land back downtown and resell it.
We need to look at every option possible. So thank you for bringing it up. We are pushing it as much as we
If I
can.
may, Ms.
Go ahead, Mr.
I agree with you, Mr. Robinson, that we had a conversation with Mr. Leitner
Yes.
about that specific issues and the opportunity zone, and he is working on that, he's taking advantage as much as he can, and he's going to
Yes.
do even more.
Yes, and that's something that once we're through budget season, probably after the new year, I would like to work and hold a hearing on if I'm still chair of the committee.
All right, thank you. Good evening, can we have your name and address, please?
I'm Patricia Tyler, I'm a resident of Allentown, Pennsylvania, and a city owner, business owner. And the reason I came here tonight, I was wondering if I could talk to somebody about maybe implementing a new project, if it would work in the budget for networking or some type of a database to help vulnerable property owners or business owners who are targets of, there's all types of violence going on, there's some type of electronic harassment going on, hacking into people's personal business, proprietary information, there's stalking, there's people who are putting your information in databases so that when you're calling up to certain customer service places, you're being flagged, people give you a hard time, they stall you, they basically block you from access, you're denied access to a lot of things happening. And it's sort of like, I wouldn't say covert, but it's not very, very overt. It's something that's more or less within different groups and factions. There's a lot of developing factions in Allentown. And they are like targeting people's property, cars, their lawns. They're just picking certain people who they want to discredit for whatever reason, that they're, you know, maybe someone has a grievance against them and they are rolling it down the line to someone you might not even suspect might be a part of this, what's going on here. You know, they might look like a person that would never be involved in something that dangerous. And it's just like maybe some normal business owner, neighbors, maybe even some teenagers are involved in this. And I think it's becoming pretty prevalent. There's a lot of fraud that's going on. Some people want you to move. I know I had people just tell me just move, strangers, just tell me just move, you know, just move. And I think what they're trying to do is get certain people out of their neighborhoods, out of their homes. And there's basically not really much you can do about it as an individual because there's a large network that's forming. And the police though cannot really do much for you because it's happening, so it's so prevalent. And they have they're very selective with the people that they can help. And, I mean, there's not really much resources. So I was thinking that maybe if there's some way that, there could be like a liaison committee or something like that implemented with a database or some way to form some type of connection. I don't know, I just was wondering if, you know, you may have any ideas or recommendations in that regard.
Mr. Zupan.
Well, if you're being harassed in any way, obviously, you know, make a complaint with the police department. Are you talking about scams? What are you talking
Scams, that's
about?
right, exactly, fraudulent scams. People are being targeted and to run them down, financially devastate them, emotionally devastate them.
And how are you
ruin their
finding out?
lives.
Is the bank telling you that people are doing this, or what are
Well,
you telling
They
you
can give
this?
you a hard time, like when you call up places you wouldn't even suspect for information, they stall you, they waste your time.
I'm sorry, continue.
Okay, they waste your time because it's what's called flagging. You know, that your name pops up and then some networks. You know, there's a lot of Facebook friending going on, and these people form these networks and they have enemies that they want to target particular people. Like they look at their cookies online, you know, and they see what their interests are. And whatever you know, they may bring up whatever you have written online in the past, and they just keep rolling with it. And then, like your information is all over the place. You know, it's like an algorithm. Once you put it in a computer, a database, it rolls down, and it's like, you know, data mining, that they have something on you that's gonna put a mark on your name. And once that happens, like wherever you go, people are, you know, they're gonna give you a hard time, so.
Well, I would suggest as a former police officer that you don't give any information to anybody that you do not know who you're talking to.
They have experts who target you, hack into your computer. They can do this without your knowledge or consent.
Okay.
And lives can be ruined, and the reason why I'm saying that the police officers can't really do much about it because it's prevalent. They have their immediate crimes a lot of times reported to police officers. It has to be after the fact. That's why I'm saying that maybe some type of surveillance committee or some type of advocacy, because usually the victims' rights or advocacy, they don't help you afterwards. I'm talking about some type of watch. I know it's like they have neighborhood watches where people can walk around the neighborhood and they also have cameras. But what about something that is gonna prevent them from targeting your personal information in a way that's gonna be disseminated throughout these different corporations? There's nothing really that for that, and it can start right here in the local area as a you know, a project that might be worked on to see how it could run, example, to see how it could run on a greater scale. So I was wondering if anybody might be interested in trying to talk to somebody about something like that.
Mayor, what I would suggest is, what we have is the Human Relations Commission. They probably can target something like that, and that's part of the city.
Well,
However, let me just finish. However, it sounds like what you're talking about is a federal issue. I would suggest more like the Attorney General's office, and they have local offices that they may be able to target, because this is, if it's a network, it could be anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. It could be the Russians, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was talking about more like on the liaison side. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but the federal, city, state, whatever, they're so like, this like backed up, there's probably like millions of paperwork that they have stacks of them that they haven't gone through yet, you know? I was thinking if you started on the ground, like, well, maybe something local, that's what my suggestion was anyway.
Yeah, the Attorney General's office may be the best group to target this, and they have local offices.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ringer. State your name and address.
You're not waving me to come up, you just sort of.
Mr. Ringer.
Thank you, I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank
And
you.
Julio, I don't think they're coming to Russia, I think it's the Dominicans.
I'm
sorry, Julio.
Maybe the Ringer's roots are still.
Yeah, that's
the
right.
second one.
I'll get inside.
I was using my glasses, it's out of order.
We're proposing a skate park here in Allentown, we got a city grant for this thing. Do you know they're gonna put this in a flood zone?
Isn't this
Jordan Park. Jordan Park is a flood zone. Haven't we learned about flood zones?
The only thing is different than a skate
What's
park.
different? It's a flood zone.
Yeah, but it's not a swimming pool, let's put it that way.
But you're still putting something in a flood zone, Julio.
Yeah, but how many times have those tennis courts been flooded? I mean, you know, really, I mean,
That's
we
what
have
it
rains
was
are
there.
bad.
Yeah.
I'm just stating, we have enough problems with Cedar Beach, all right? The other thing, last week, my wife and me attended a concert down at the center, okay, the PPL Center. And I came up Washington Street to 7th. And there was 2 lanes of traffic going all the way in. And once you got past Tillman, every other block, there was a car with a 4-way signals on, blocking the road. And I'm telling you, every other block.
I saw that too.
Okay, and we got to the center, and there was no cops at 7th and Linden Street at all. And this is a sold-out concert, okay? There was one officer sitting in his car, though, okay? That's a fact. We went into the concert, and my wife started talking to a lady in back of us. She said, I was terrified, there was a fight at 7th and Linden. She says, I'm coming, there's nobody there, there was a fight. I ran into the building. We have this beautiful, beautiful building. This center is second to none for a medium-sized center in the country. It's beautiful. And yet we have to protect the people that are coming in. It's not right to have these people subject to that kind of stuff. We're trying to show off our city, you know? And I think something should be done, that we have officers there that are protecting the people more than they are right now. And I just want to say something else about the officers here in this town. And I'm not against the quality of the policemen, okay? But we have a problem here. The police chief sent a memo out about asking us to support the police with this contract stuff and everything else. How about the officers supporting the citizens here? We don't see any officer getting out of their cars, talking to any people out in the West End at all. Yet I see them hiding over in the fairgrounds, up at the jewelry shop, at the hoagie shop, or sitting somewhere. But they should be, if they want support from us, they should have us and help us too. Be out talking to us, interacting with the community, okay? And most of these guys, they're not bad officers, they just don't live in the city and they don't care. They collect their check and they're out of town, all right? I'm sorry, that's the way it is. And I asked one other thing with this budget, that we look at this 3% raise for city employees. We want to raise taxes. The mayor's proposing, I think it's 27%, 25% in taxes. And Social Security people are getting I think it's 2.6 or whatever raise this year. How the hell are these Social Security people supposed to pay for their taxes here in the city? And yet we're going to give employees here a 3% raise, and we're pretty much bankrupt here in this city. We can't afford it. We have to look at different things here. You just don't give a raise for, you know, if you don't have the money, you can't give a raise. It's very simple. Thank you.
Thank you,
If
Mr.
I may,
Raymond.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Raymond, I was
Yes,
at
sir.
that concert also, and I was at the later one, I'm not sure which time you
I
were
was
there.
early, Daryl.
All right, there was a police officer there when I was there, and he was actually helping people across the street and all.
Is this at 7th and Linden?
Yes,
There
yes.
was nobody there early.
Well, and he said he had a car there, or was sitting in the.
There was
he
a
made
car,
it-
there was a car alongside the old Reed Hotel, sitting there.
And maybe
was
that
in-
he was,
He was just in the car, but there was nobody assisting
and maybe
people.
there was a reason he was in the car. I don't know what that is, but I will say this, double parking on 7th Street has become a real problem again.
Yeah, it's ridiculous,
Yeah, I agree,
We
I
have to do a
agree.
better job.
you know?
I agree, I came down on 7th Street around that time. It was for the second entrance. But there were actually three officers on Linden Street when I came in. And there was one towards the west end, and there were 2 on the south end, or the, like by Rite Aid over there, and there was a cop car.
There were none there, Julia, when we came in.
Yeah, that was probably the only, but, the other thing is, I did see those cars parked on double parking on 7th Street. That, we gotta do something about that, I agree.
Yeah, Mr. Zuko, I'll bet you those cars don't have inspection stickers.
I don't know, they were double parked when I came in tonight, too.
Yes, there were 2 of them when I came in. I had to go
Thank you,
around.
Mr. Raymond. Mr. Hahn, can you state your name, please?
I'm on the east side. One of the things that I'd like a little discussion about is the fees in the zoning department. For example, if I use the riverfront property as the example, and it's gonna take a couple of years to do that, and the process has already started for 1 year, is that typically where those rates, $1,000, because it went to another year, are those the people that are gonna be paying for that? In other words, those projects where they have to have multiple inspections and all that stuff. Now, is that a help or a burden to people building here? I'm just asking because all, that project is gonna take more than 5 years. Building the riverfront, building the buildings, you know, all the things that are going on. I'm not sticking up, for them, I'm just using that as an example, the other people that have a project that lasts longer than a year and have to keep, you know, paying for all this stuff. So,
If I may, the way it was explained to me, to us actually, to say, yes. Huh?
Were you here the other night, Mr. Pond?
yeah,
When
yeah,
they explained the
yeah,
process?
and I heard it explained, but the same thing could happen to me. If I, put addition on on my house and it took more than a year, I get another burden. So if I'm the contractor and I put the foundation in, I put the shell up, and then I start doing the drywall, and then I put the electric in, and then I do all this stuff, and then the bathroom goes in, the plumbing's all set up, and I'm have to keep coming back for the permit because the inspector didn't call it off. I'm just saying, what happens to projects like that?
If they go over, they would be.
They would be charged.
Yes, however, what he did say was that if it's only a couple of days, he has the prerogative, I mean, of not charging them, he just finished the project.
Days to me resemble a week or something in that, or 10 days, but not, when you're doing, you know, when you're doing it. And if I started a project, let's say putting a patio in with a balcony upstairs coming out the window, and the weather stopped, and I wait 6 months to wait to do it again, I gotta pay again. I mean, I think we have to look at that a little more, have a bigger discussion.
Well, and keep in mind too, the fees you're talking about, we're not talking the waterfront, you're talking your home, they're much less,
Well, it's going
expensive.
for everybody.
But a year is a long time, and I understand what they were saying, they explained it, I thought, pretty well.
How long does it take you to build a house?
I don't build houses.
What about the person who does?
Thank you, Mr. Hahn.
No,
I think we got a point. It'll take me forever to build a house. Sounds.
Glenn Hunziker, South Allentown. First of all, I want to thank you all for listening to me. Have a nice holiday. And I want to thank the administration and Brian Hartzell for working with me on trying to get these numbers together. And we're going to have a new GPR report. You want a GPR report? That's a Glacier pension report. He promised he would get this every quarter, or every.
Not tonight, though.
Not tonight.
Hopefully for the
But
next.
usually within the next month, he has a report, and if he puts it online, that's satisfactory to me. Whatever. Is that where you think you're gonna do it again, or?
I think like the last time I reported to council, and I'll try and make sure there are copies of that for you.
Sounds good. We're gonna have more transparency on what's going on with the pensions. That's the big thing for this, and he's working with us, so. I don't like to thank people for doing their normal job, but sometimes you have to bend over. If you do your normal job, what I had to do, we never got thanked. Our parents, my father says, "Hey, this is your normal job, well, yeah, you have to thank you for it, this is what you're supposed to do, it costs more. If you really do something, then you get thanked." I think in what Tommy was talking about, in special, well, maybe not in special cases, but maybe you have to put an extension in there. And I understand why you want to get it done within a year, but there could be an extension where you could apply with a nominal fee that all those permits get extended for 6 months. After that, you know, if you can't complete your project in a year and a half or 15 months, we understand.
Well, I
But
think
you don't want
Mr.
the
Grady-
projects to go on forever, you just sit there.
I think Councilman Grady hit on that too.
Right.
The option would be up to the building standards, they could in those
Well,
cases.
you should put that in the code or something.
I
You don't want to have options up there.
I was waiting for you guys to say that, yes, last time we were talking about it on Monday, but nobody said anything.
Well,
so
there's too
we
much
lost
in
it,
there
that's all.
because going back to it, I want to take my last minute on those two suggestions. There weren't enough questions asking why you needed that extra money. If you go look at that department, they have plenty of money which gets pushed up into the other sausage fund. They not, I mean, yeah.
I was hoping that
But you
we can
can't
lower the tax.
argue the point that I need an extra $100 here, $50 there, when you're already, what's the sense, why are they doing that? You're really, in the long run, you're degrading people wanting to, you know, fix up their houses and everything else.
Yeah, but I think the main, and I'm
And they can't justify that number.
rehashing this, it's just.
Well, we're
We're talking
rehashing
for
it, but
mostly larger projects, and I think that's important to note here. We have some multi-million-dollar projects going on right now.
yes.
And the fees that are
They're not
being
gonna go
charged don't come close to covering the cost to our people. You're helping to pay for that.
Well, maybe you have to have a tiered system. I don't know.
That's-
I'm just saying, take an example. Mr. Minor said, the question was asked, how many inspectors does he have? He said 19, if I think I remember right. 19 inspectors, yeah, I think that's his total number,
I thought it was 16 or something.
because he only had 9 or 10 before. But if you look at just the rental properties alone, $1.9 million comes in. If I take the 19, simple math, it comes out to $103,000 per person. There's no way they spend $103,000. That means every one of those guys would get $75,000 salary, which they don't, and a $25,000 health fund to get up there. And they still have a couple thousand to throw in for coffee. I mean, where are we, I mean, if you can squeeze all these people for all this money, that's okay, but you gotta think, I think you have to think a little bit further in what you're doing. That's all I'm saying,
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
okay?
Appreciate it, thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Ken Robinson, 721 West Cumberland Street, Allentown.
Thank you.
My first thing I want to bring up is, I was somewhat appalled by getting this request from the police department to support their position in the budget process. I've been involved in Crime Watch in the city since 1980. I've been a Crime Watch president since 95, and all that time I've never received such a request to come and support the police department's budget at a city council meeting. That's not the purpose of our job out there as volunteers in Crime Watch. To go and put pressure on the members of the city council to pass a budget that they submit. It's not. Secondly, in some of the, I'm very concerned about the increase in the budget. I think we have to look more into cuts. And there's several positions at the upper or the top heavy, is what I call it, that can be cut. And if they're currently empty, they should be defunded. We need to cut this budget down. We can't, the senior citizens, even those who are nominally just making it, cannot afford such a tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
I didn't ask you to come here, right?
Okay, Ken.
I said, I didn't ask you to come here, right?
No, you didn't. Oh, I thought you had a comment. No. You're always here.
Is there anyone else from the public on the courtesy of the floor? Seeing none, we will continue. On the agenda tonight, we have, let's see, approval of minutes. Okay. Common consent, Mr. Hammond.
Okay.
Any old business? Seeing none? Let's move on to communications. All right, we have reports from the committee next, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Zuko for Public Works.
Okay, the Public Works Committee has met twice. There will be a special meeting on December 3rd at 6 p.m. to vote on the mayor's budget. Memos and council's budget amendments. I would ask that the administration and council have all amendments and memos to the clerk's office by noon on November 28th, so that they can be made available to the public in a timely fashion pursuant to council rules. In addition to that, there's two bills tonight to discuss with Public Works, Bill 81 and 82, which we'll discuss further on in the meeting. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right.
Madam President, just something that was not included in the committee report is that the Community and Economic Development Committee met on Monday evening, to consider two bills that will be included as part of the budget process on December 5th. They were forwarded favorably with contingencies for more information to be provided from the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. All right, the normal committee will kick off after we complete the budget. What we have now is the controller's report. Mr. Glazier, do you have a report first?
I do. Seeing how I kind of underperformed earlier without having questions for Public Works. This is a report I didn't give at the last council meeting, so. It's an accounts payable weekly check review. This is really for October. We reviewed 546 checks for a little bit over $12 million, 23 wires for $3.7 million. The first issue is an important one. We found an invoice paid against an expired contract. We identified one invoice for $210 for a 2018 contract charged against a 2015 purchase order. The 2018 contract states that the contractor shall receive an estimated annual sum not to exceed $55,000. Further research revealed that the purchase order was for a contract with an expiration date of 3/11/2017. The contract and the associated purchase order remained open in Eden for the 2018 contract, $6,232.50 had been charged against the 2015 purchase order. Because the purchase order was for a prior and now expired contract, at $6,232.50 did not show up against the current contract in the overview report. You had to look for the money elsewhere. The contract overview report shows the department have spent $35,092 against the contract, but the actual amount spent against the contract was $41,325. Engineering was advised of the issue and it is recommended that they contact purchasing. For purchasing, a journal entry contract would only allow a change to the account number, and the account number was okay, but it wouldn't change the PO field. So they're going to need to watch themselves on that contract that they don't overspend. But this contract is a July 3rd to July 2nd contract. It's not a calendar contract. So it just means, we need to get these contracts closed when they're expired. And I think now purchasing is in a position to do that because they have a contract administrator. There may be some others out there like that, I'm not sure, but we did find this one. We found an invoice charged against another department's expense. Historically, the fall-winter edition of the Allentown Adventure has been budgeted and paid for by the Trexler Fund. For 2018, the invoice was a little bit more, and they farmed some of the expense out to Parks and Recreation to the Aquatics account and also to CED administration. What the proper way to have dealt with this was to have CED do a transfer to Parks to cover the expense if they needed the money. And when CED was here the other day, they mentioned the cost of paper because of the tariffs had increased the printing. And I understand that, but this has been a Parks responsibility, had been a Parks responsibility. It's budgeted in their account, and the proper way to deal with it was to do a transfer, not just to have the expense show up in another department's account. We found some wires that were posted to Eden late. 6 wires were posted to Eden in October, but the invoices were from July 2018 through September 2018. The invoices were all for employee benefits. The risk there is that Eden doesn't get updated to reflect that money's been spent. So in those accounts, one would think that there's more money than there really is. So it's very important that the departments get this into Eden as quickly as possible. We also found a wire posted in Eden for 20 cents more than invoice amount. It was taken care of. There were 24 invoices that were paid late, various reasons for them, but all the departments promised to do better and contact their vendors. And that's my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ledger.
May I just ask you a question?
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Manager. Mr. President, do you get to see, is part of your role to see that the, all the contracts are closed out? Do you do that?
Well, yes and no, Mr. Greedy. We did an audit 4 or 5 weeks ago where we audited the contract closeout process. We found out that a number of those contracts are A, not closed out, and B, that the controller's office does not have them. Now, purchasing, within the past 2 months, moved someone into that contract administrator's position. So hopefully going forward, because this will be part of that position's responsibility to make sure the contracts are closed out in a timely manner, that they'll perform much better on that metric.
Yeah. And the reason why I ask that is because exactly what you're saying. And you know what Mr. Hunziker brought up earlier today, with regards to contract accounts. And if a contract is closed out, there should be some kind of accounting on if there's any money left, there's the money, where the contract did in regards to its finances for the contract. Because then I've been finding out by looking at it that there have been contracts that were closed out in 2007, 2008, 2009, and they have not completed. There have been some money left lingering there.
In capital contracts, that can happen. If it's regular service contract, like this one happened to be for surveying services, you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have that issue.
Okay. Great, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
I'm done, Madam Chair. I guess we can keep talking.
Are you finished?
Yeah, I am, thank you.
So am I. I had a little pattern up here. I have a question for Mr. Hanlon, actually, Mr. Zuko has one here. But we'll continue with, first we'll go with the administration report, Mr. Mayor.
No formal report, just wishing everyone and their families a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the day, because we'll be back at it next week.
Yes, thank you very much. Same to you and your family. All right, we have appointments. We have one appointment tonight for the zoning hearing board. His name is Nicholas Miller, and he will be I was just, I'm not supposed to say that he will expire on 2022. So, do we have any comments from my colleagues on this?
His term will expire.
His term will expire. He will not expire. Anyone from the public? Is Mr. Miller here?
Yes.
Nicholas, come on up and say something. Are you too young to expire in 2022?
You want to vote first?
Yeah, what you vote first?
Stay here.
Stay right there. Okay, I have a vote, Mr. Hammond.
Okay, this is the vote on Mr. Miller to the zoning hearing board as an alternate. Ms. Adler?
Yes.
Mr. Greedy?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Ms. Moda?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
President, 6 yeas and no nays.
All right, then. Mr. Miller?
Thank you very much for the vote of confidence. I think my experience at IBM as a project manager and as a part-time realtor will definitely bring a lot to the zoning board, and I look forward to serving Allentown that spot. So thank you very much.
And he is always here to meetings, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your willingness and your service to the city.
Thank you.
Yes, and your youth. I've been here for a long time, thank you.
When you were interviewed, I asked you to get more involved in city committees, and you're taking a lot of papers on it, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Well, like Mr. Zuko said, he's always back in the corner. He's here, he's very dedicated.
That was it for the appointments. Now we have ordinance for final passage. We have a question, Mr. Zuko.
Yeah, I have a technical question, Mr. Halen, and I kind of my mistake, I think, but there was 4 ordinances that were supposed to be talked about after the budget meeting, and I adjourned them, and those are the ones that we mentioned earlier, 81, yeah, down there. Instead of being on the actual agenda,
Bill 81.
they're on the budget meetings.
Yeah, what I usually do is just put the, I think I call them the applicable budget,
ordinances that
Yes.
we discussed. They discussed them, they discussed the stormwater.
Okay.
They discussed the solid waste fee, so they were part of the discussion that.
Okay, so there's nothing out of line with, you know,
I actually just put it in there in case somebody says, well, you really did consider the bill. So
Okay.
you are
So there's-
considering the bill, so I just put it there as a.
so there's nothing illegal, Mr. Kloiber?
The process is fine.
Okay, thank you.
So I can just put this aside and continue. All right, we have ordinance for final passage to be voted on. Mr. Hanley, could you do Bill 75, please?
Providing for dedication of a portion of East Hedge Street along the northern portion of East Hedge Street and along the length of the southern boundary of 1047 to 1051 Irving Street, containing 1,012 square feet, more or less, being located in the 15th floor. And this was approved by the Planning Commission, the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, and there were no opposers.
Are
This
there any
was
comments?
this was in front of my committee, Ms. Hoffman, it was voted on favorably to go to council.
Okay. Were there any comments from my colleagues on this? Anyone from the public? Seeing none, Mr. Hanley, we'll call for a vote.
Mr. Greedy.
I'm sorry, I missed something. You say it was favorably? or
Yes.
favorably?
Okay,
Okay,
favorably.
okay, I'd say yes.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
Ms. Moda.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Zuko.
Yes.
Ms. Zappa.
Yes.
Mr. President, 6 yeas.
All right, moving on to Bill 76. This was moved favorably also from your committee, Mr. Zuppel. Do you want to read Bill 76, Mr. Hanley?
Bill 76 renames a portion of Law Street between Hamilton and Walnut Street, Bayard, Ruston Way, and the request is from the Bradbury Sullivan LGBT Community Center.
Any comments from colleagues?
Um,
Bill 76, Mr. Robinson?
Madam President, thank you. Just as the prime sponsor of this, I just wanted to thank my colleagues who have co-sponsored this and encourage all of you to vote favorably for this. Public Works made an examination of the area, determined there are no addresses that will be affected by this. It's a very easy change. They worked with the LGBT Center, the Bradbury Sullivan Center, to make sure that everything was being handled appropriately. And I think this is a great way to honor a leader in not only the LGBT community, but the civil rights movement. And I think it's appropriate that Allentown do this because we are the first city in the country to have a monument to both Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his wife. And I think it's appropriate that we're now also taking the step of honoring Mr. Rustin for his service to civil rights in the LGBT community. And I would just ask for a positive vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
May I just go back, for some reason I thought that I said, when I was called about it, I thought I said I'd like to co-sponsor it as well. My name is not here, but I'd like to see if we can, for the record, add my name to it.
Excellent.
Who would like co-sponsor it?
You did.
I agree too, but we understand
We
it
all
here.
go. We're all very
But it's
proud.
okay.
And
Yes,
thank you
yes, we are.
for championing this, Mr. Robinson.
This was an easy one when Mr. Schenker approached me about it, so.
Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to, obviously, a lot of respect for Mr. Schenker. Administration was in full support of this also.
Absolutely, and I apologize, Mr. Mayor, for not mentioning that the administration was a co-sponsor from the beginning.
But the administration is there.
Yeah.
It is in the ordinance. That is a
Yeah,
co-sponsor.
but I want to be acknowledged publicly,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you guys sponsor and that's great, but we don't get involved, but this one, we get involved in good stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, it is in here.
I'm not saying, yeah, it was last time.
Because we all, put our 2 cents in, say, it's not
We get involved.
it's your words to say that also.
Okay.
Will that be all from my colleagues? Seeing none, something from someone from the public?
Adrian Schenker, Executive Director of Bradbury Sullivan LGBT Community Center. I want to read from a letter that we provided to you a couple weeks ago. Bradbury Sullivan LGBT Community Center, which provides arts, health, youth, and pride programs for our city here in Allentown, is pleased that Allentown City Council, as well as the administration, is considering our request to rename South Law Street from Hamilton to Walnut Bayard Rustin Way. Bayard Rustin's life is one to be celebrated. A native Pennsylvanian, Rustin mentored Martin Luther King Jr. and taught him the strategies of nonviolence He organized the 1963 March in Washington, but was not permitted to speak at the march because he was gay. President Obama, when he awarded Rustin the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously, said, for decades, this great leader, often at Martin Luther King's side, was denied his rightful place in history because he was openly gay. No medal can change that, but we can honor Rustin's memory by taking our place in his march toward true equality, no matter who we are or who we love. There are no mailboxes other than ours at our center that are affected by this change. And to coincide with the renaming of the street, Bradbury Sullivan Center will provide community programs to educate local residents about Rustin's life and activism. We are also planning to install a mural on the side of our building on this street to coincide with a formal street renaming ceremony this spring, which his partner plans to come from New York to attend. The opportunity to recognize a Pennsylvania-born national leader in the fight for civil and human rights is exciting, and we're grateful for your consideration. I also just want to add to Mr. Robinson's remarks that this will only be the second street name for a non-Allentown resident, and the other one is Martin Luther King Boulevard. So it's very fitting that his top 8 would be the second street. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Any other comments? Okay, we'll move on to resolution for final patches to be voted on.
We gotta vote.
We all sponsored it, so I wouldn't even have to go through that, do we? Mr. Hanlon, can I have a vote?
Mr. Henricks? Yes. Ms. Moda?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
Zappa?
Yes.
Yes.
President, 6 yeas.
All right. Now we'll move on to resolution for final passage to be voted on. R 131, Mr. Hanlon.
R-131 are certificates of appropriateness for work in the historic district, and it's certificates at 31 North 17th Street, 1524 Linden Street, and 1641 West Turner Street.
All right, any comments from my colleagues on bill R 131, rather? Resolution 131. Any comments, Mr. Robinson?
No, I would just ask, since Mr. Kimmerly is here the night before Thanksgiving, just to hear from him as to the board's opinion on all 3 of these.
Mr. Kirano?
Sure. Just very quickly, 31 North 17th, these are all in West Park, by the way. 31 North 17th Street is a proposal to build a balcony and a porch on the back of a building. And that was forwarded for approval by, favorably by Harvard City Council. 1524 Linden Street is the Allentown Masonic Temple, and that proposal is to put telecommunications equipment on the roof, and that also was forwarded favorably. And 1641 West Charter Street is to fix a violation for removal of stained glass windows on the 2nd floor of a house, and that also to the applicant agreed to fix the violation and will follow the proper procedures, and that was forwarded favorably to have that taken care of. So if there's any questions, we have to answer.
Quick question. I thought if it was in the back of the building, you didn't have to go through Harvard.
Well, it's actually, the way that the ordinance is stated is that if it's visible from a public right of way. In this case, it's visible from an alley, and there's some leniency because it is in the back, but it still needs to be reviewed by Harvard. Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Anyone from the public? Seeing none? Mr. Hanlon?
Okay, on the approval of the certificates of appropriateness, Ms. Moda?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
Ms. Zappa?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
President, 6 yeas, and Madam President, 6 yeas.
We have ordinance for introduction to refer to committee without public comment prior to referral. We have none. Resolution for introduction can be voted on, referred to committee. We have none. Any new business? Seeing none. Good and welfare?
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Oh, I wasn't finished yet. New business, well, I guess this will be done, good and welfare, and this, before we adjourn, happy Thanksgiving to everyone, happy holidays. The rest of you, if you want to say it all together? Happy Thanksgiving. All right, this meeting is adjourned.
much.